So hello everybody, today is Tuesday the 30th of August 2022. I'm Neelu Chaudhari with Cant, both in London, UK, and we are volunteers for Swissindo International Prosperity Payments 1-11 worth $1 quintillion being distributed equally to each of 7.6 billion people in 253 countries since 2013 G8 summit in June. So we are over 9 years overdue, the money, the prosperity. People are asking a lot of questions, and I want to put all the questions to Lee, and then Lee can help me answer them. So first of all, people are asking about the wise.com account. What do they do once they open that account? Well, they just have to wait to, that, because the G8 summit had, what was the company that was going to do the transferring then? It was a different company.
Well, there's a memo sent by Mr. Sino asking about linking SWIFT with the Bank of England and Deutsche Bank and Commerce Bank. And there are lots of companies that do perform the same purpose and duties as WISE, but we're just using WISE as an example. It's a money transfer company. And because Mr. Sino deposited on the 1st of August, a lot of money, quintillions.
Quadrillion, 1 quadrillion.
Recently, then he wants us to access that Swissindo money.
So the countries, the 5 countries that got that 1 quadrillion, which is 1,000 trillion, are UK, USA, Russia, China, and South Africa. And I'm sure Indonesia got it as well. And other countries got it as well. But that's on top of the 10 quadrillion that went to IRS Minnesota in 2016 through Laos, and the 10 quadrillion that went to China in 2018, and the 1 quintillion, which is a million trillion, that went to IRS through the 2013 transaction or the G8 summit 2013 via, I can't remember, was it Commerce Bank or Deutsche Bank, but it went to IRS, and then IRS did not transfer it to Commerce Bank. And then Obama and Merkel and Trudeau did not let it happen because they got blackmailed by the banks. So we're 9 years overdue. The reason for wise.com is that because the other banks, the mainstream banks, the international transfer charges are up to 10%, and WISE is less than 1%. And Swissindo allows for only 1% or 1.5% transaction fees. So if we were to go with the mainstream banks, and this is how the banks have taken over control of our prosperity, is by inflating the transaction fee. So wise.com, if you get your money through wise.com, then they won't be tapping into your principal amount, whereas you lose 10% of your principal amount. So your 1,200 a month will drop by 10%. Whereas with wise.com, the transaction fee is less than 1%. Swissindo allows for, say, 1 or 1.5%. Your principal will remain 1,200. You get 100% of the full amount.
Yeah.
So that's why the wise.com people are opening their accounts and it can be done in 10 minutes, that you can get your Swissindo. So that monopoly of the big banks, we can shortcut it, of the overcharging of the transfer rates for international transfers, because Swissindo is going to be international transfers, getting through to all that many people. And Wise does have a lot of countries that it covers. So Lee, it does about 50 countries, which covers most of the population, you said.
Yeah, that's correct, Neelu. Yeah.
So the continents are main countries, so Russia, China, Africa, India, America, it's all covered. So that's the wise.com question.
There is another reason why Wise, because they're unlikely to steal the capital that's been deposited by Mr. Sino, whereas if he, as proven historically, the banks steal the capital, so therefore it would be better for Mr. Sino to fund Swissindo directly himself into Wise. So he has an account in Wise and we have an account. So it makes a simple, we avoid that 1% fee.
Mm.
When you read all the frequently asked questions, it says transfers between account holders in Wise, there's no transaction fee.
Okay,
so
but they could yeah, so they could,
yeah,
you know, that's the reason. There are other companies, but because Swissindo, Mr. Sino's approved wise.com, he's aware of it and he's approved it. So
yeah,
he's happy with it. So, you know, why are we going to object to which company we're going to go with? Because like you say, there's no charges.
Yeah.
All the transfers.
So we just send him a note saying for him to set up his own account in Wise.
Well, we don't have to do anything like that, because the way the obstacles are still the central banks. The central banks which blackmailed the presidents, the bankers, shall we say, the bankers that control the central banks, are the obstacles that we're facing. So Mr. Sino is waiting for the obstacles to be removed. So
yeah,
the ambassadors in Jakarta have to visit Mr. Sino to make the arrangements for the Swissindo to be transferred to their countries through whatever platform they choose. And similar to Wise, it could be, you know, they want to choose something else for their country, that's fine. If Wise doesn't cover their country, then they can choose some other platform. That's up to them. But the central banks will not be able to charge more than 1% transaction fees. Otherwise, they will lose the 1%, you know, the fee. They won't be part of Swissindo, because people are not going to want 10% of their monthly amounts chopped off.
Yeah.
Just because of greed by the banks. So that's covered then. The wise.com question is covered. So basically, we've got to wait for the ambassadors in Jakarta to visit Mr. Sino to arrange the central banks in their countries to receive the funds, so that companies like Wise can set up these accounts of those people of the country on a page for that country, where you can go and log on and get your money. And, you know, people are also talking about, you know, what we're going to do without cash. Well, the future, you know, it's not that we don't have cash. We don't need cash, because we've been using our cards, and Wise has a card for £5. You can get a Wise card, you know, it's you know, you can then start spending your monthly amounts using a Wise card for £5. It's worth it. It's a one-off fee, and you have to take a photo on their website to get the card. And they're so busy now, Wise. Everybody's doing it. So there's going to be a panic.
You can go to an ATM machine and draw out notes,
Yeah.
cash notes, and buy food immediately with the cash.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that part of it over with. Next thing is the NESARA, GESARA, Swissindo. What's the connection? So I was talking to somebody who's an expert on NESARA, and she said that they don't use the word GESARA, because as she said, there's no such thing as GESARA, Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. She said there's only the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. So this is Caroline Oceana Ryan, who's an expert on NESARA, but she says she's part of the Ashta Command, and they're all guided. But I said that I've just sent her a message to say, well, you know, Swissindo is the gold that NESARA applies to. NESARA is only a law, it's an act of 2000. So the channeled messages talk about the gold of Saint Germain, and Swissindo is that gold of Saint Germain, which NESARA applies to. So, but when they say we're only going with NESARA, we're not interested in Swissindo, well, that's a problem, because you can't do NESARA without the gold. You can't say an act or a law is more important than the thing that it applies to, which is the gold. So, you know, Swissindo international law is the NESARA of America, and it is the global law for the whole world, because you can't have just a national law in America and then not do the same to the rest of the world. You can't go gold in America or pretend to go gold in America without making the rest of the world go gold, when America's been holding the fiat currency over the world. It's been imposing fiat on the world, keeping the global wealth at 418 trillion, when the gold would give us way more than that, which is like 2,500 times more in gold than fiat. So it doesn't make sense to dissociate Swissindo with NESARA, because if you apply NESARA to America, you're only still going to be holding 24 trillion wealth, most of which is debts, whereas some countries like China have, say, 20%, 17% global wealth of that cut, but most of theirs isn't loans and debts, it's just prosperity. And that will go up 2,500 times. So what other questions are there? Can you think of any other questions, Lee? Because, oh yeah, what people are asking, South Africa, what's happening in South Africa? So Fanny Fonse, who is Adrian Rudolph Fonse, he was approached by one of the central bankers in Indonesia to say, we don't know where the central banks, the money has gone. It's not in the central banks. And some people who told me in India as well, the Reserve Bank of India, also those accounts in the treasury statements, those account numbers, they do not exist. And there is no money in the Reserve Bank of India. Those Swissindo funds are not there anymore. So Fanny Fonse filed a case against the Reserve Bank of South Africa, South African Reserve Bank, in February 2020. And in October 2021, he issued a 10-day quick notice when he found out through the research, comparing the 2007 Treasury statement with the 2012 Treasury statements, that the one had 917 accounts, the other had 887 accounts, so 34 accounts missing. And in one of those accounts, $700 quintillion was missing. So then he pinpointed that the money had gone from the central banks around the world into the South African Reserve Bank. And the president of South Africa had knowingly wiped off those accounts off the map. And so the quit notice was given, and so rightly that there was money laundering going on in the government, and that now the government had to be removed. That's what it came to. So those documents are on swissindo.webs.com, the bundle that was filed against the South African Reserve Bank. And so His Majesty Mr. Sugihartono Tonogoro has just sent, as Lee has said, $1 quadrillion to South Africa, a Reserve Bank of South Africa, South African Reserve Bank, sorry. And you know what they're going to do? They're not going to tell the people they received this money. They're not going to say this money is for equal share of the people, payments 1-11 of Swissindo prosperity payments under Swissindo international law. They're not going to say that to the people. They're just going to keep quiet about it. So that's the problem. So people say, well, what do we do? Well, once you've got your wise.com account, so the ambassador in Indonesia for South Africa has to go and visit Mr. Sino. He has to arrange with Mr. Sino for the $1 quadrillion to be transferred via a platform like wise.com. See, South African Reserve Bank will say, oh no, we want to do it, we'll charge 1%. And people might just think, no, we don't want to deal with them. We want to go with Wise. You know, because like you say, Lee, you can't trust South African Reserve Bank. You can't trust them. If they've managed to wipe out all the central bank accounts around the world, people would rather not go with them. We'd rather say, no, it's all right, we'll just do Wise. They've always been 1%, they're always going to be 1%. We don't know what Saab is going to do with the interest rates. They get their monopoly, then they start increasing their fees. And it's the same with Bank of England. And it's the same with HSBC in China. So we have, these transfers have gone to China, Russia, America, UK, and South Africa. So those ambassadors have to go and visit Mr. Sino. And then not only those ambassadors, but the ambassadors of the parent countries of 51 countries that originally signed the Swissindo back in 1945, Lee. So do you want to explain what happened there?
Could you repeat the question again, Neelu, please?
The 51 parent countries that originally signed up Swissindo.
Yes.
I mean, United Nations, the Swissindo is the United Nations.
The founder nations, yeah. Who signed the UNO, it would be a UNO document approval. They signed its approval, yeah.
And that was, you said, in France, was it? Or in Westminster?
I'm not sure where they actually signed it.
But they met. Where did they meet? First meet?
They've met in a number of different locations. But one of the first meetings was at Triton Square in London, at the Trinity House, Triton House building. And so that was one of the first meeting places. And then they met in New York as well. And as you say, Paris as well.
So coming back to this, the document that's on the chronology on swissindo.webs.com, that is the Treasury statement. and in it are the 917 accounts. Then you have the 2012 Treasury Statement. These are all the central bank accounts in the world. And the 2007 gives you the amounts in those accounts. But by the 2012, those accounts had disappeared and the money had gone as well. So the reset had to happen in 2013, which was according to the population as opposed to the births. So the reset is still pending. The gold reset is pending per population, and that will need to be adjusted for the difference between the populations in 2013 and 2022. But the $6 million is not going to go down. It's fixed, the fixed amount, but it's just that the country, you know, the amount of money transferred to the country for the population will change, which doesn't make any difference to the individual families or children or adults. So then people say, if Swissindo happens, then nobody will go to work. And that's not the problem. The problem is at the moment, money is with the criminals, and whistleblowers are in prisons and mental institutes, and they're being held hostage. And they are our leaders, then they need to be released, because at the moment there is nobody looking after the interests of humanity, because the governments and the leaders have been compromised by the banks, by the fiat currency, which needs the gold reset badly, for 9 years overdue, as agreed by the Swissindo International Law of 14th of June 2010 at the United Nations, which was signed by the 12 signatories. It's called the 12 portal document. So if you go to swissindo.webs.com website, you'll see that one document is 2010. Then there's a master bond document there on the chronology section from 2016, June 2016. There's a debt burden liberation certificate document from around the same time. And then you have the Lakshmi documents from last year, which were really trying to get Swissindo moving again because of all the sabotage that had happened with Swissindo, with Mr. Sino being put in prison for doing Swissindo, which is another crime against humanity, which has caused the delays, which we need to you know, need explanations for why that happened. So that's all that I wanted to cover, really. Is there anything else you want to cover, Lee?
Yeah, there is a difference between the UN and the UNO.
Mm-hmm.
And something serious has gone wrong within those organizational structures, because there's no name against the president of those structures, and the name should be President Sukarno. He was the first president, and yet his name has been Tipexed out. So something serious. Someone's rewritten the history the way they want to manipulate history according to their own private agenda, and they've deleted the true history.
Well, and the fact,
books.
and of course, the fact that His Majesty Mr. Sino is the son of the president. He's, the king. He's a son of the king and the heir. It was King Sukarno. President of the United Nations was King Sukarno, and now the president of the United Nations is King Sugihara Tonogoro, his son. So that the Green Hilton Agreement between King Sukarno and John F. Kennedy was a Swissindo agreement to go gold mandate. And then the NESARA of 2000 was a gold mandate of Swissindo, applying to the gold of Swissindo, which would have prevented the shrinking of the global wealth and a disproportionate amount of global wealth being debts and loans, and that the control of the financial wealth being in the hands of criminals whilst they are abusing their power of office to control the governments and the presidents and targeting whistleblowers, killing them, kidnapping them, putting them in prisons like Julian Assange, Melanie Shaw, many others, Julian Anthony Fernandez, Patrick Cullinane, all our whistleblowers who are honourable people have been murdered, disappeared. So anything else, Lee?
There are lots of hijackers around who want to seize their own ego, power-driven, unbalanced claim upon Swissindo and replace Mr. Sino with themselves at the top. And even with the $1,200 being issued by the US president as a social security payment, that's almost a kind of hijack of Swissindo, because they're, by doing that, issuing out those millions of checks to people. What they're saying is that they're trying to replace Swissindo with themselves at the head of the kingdom, their little kingdom that they're trying to create. And so it's to beware those who are hijacking, who are deceiving people.
Can I just say that the 1,200 obviously is a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that they gave $1,200, but they only gave it the once in a year or once in a 2 years. But with Swissindo, with the wise.com, you go on to you open your account and it comes through every month without a problem. It's automatic. And the other trick they used, do you remember that film, The $6 Million Man, Lee? I wonder where they got that from.
They got it from, as in the New York Times, the newspaper that existed before the First World War. They used lots of headlines using 6 million, and they were talking.
They did the time travel, Lee. They used to do the time travel through the looking glass, and obviously they knew there was something about.
Yeah, the Zoom just froze then.
Oh, yeah. So the $6 Million Man was one of those time travel things. They knew it was going to be a significant figure. Oh, Lee's frozen now. He said I was frozen. So yeah, I was going to say they must have time traveled, Lee. We talk about this time travel, don't we?
Before the First World War, yeah. They keep repeating that thousands of times. The 6 million. It's quite. It's hilarious.
Yeah. So so the hijackers started decades ago. They've been at it trying to stop us getting it. And now the banks have been exposed, the banks have been criminally prosecuted, they've been jailed, but they're still carrying on like they don't care. They don't care about laws. They don't care about stealing our Swissindo trust fund money and making us think that they loaned it to us. And then they're charging us interest on it. And then they make out that we're in arrears and that they're going to steal our house. And then they steal our house. They stole my house. And now they're trying to steal my late sister's house, which my late sister wants to be a charity for my baby niece, for her baby, for, you know, as a what do you call it, memorial for her.
And
baby.
also it's a temple for worship. So how can a bank come along and steal a temple that's dedicated for worship to God? I mean, they're breaking divine laws. You know, they're stealing from God, in other words. You know, if the banks are violating human rules and parliamentary rules as well as God's rules, you know, they're
acting not only criminally but treasonously. They're acting, you know, as if Satan owns God, as if Satan rules this planet, and he doesn't.
And also, the other very subtle, cunning trick is that President Biden issued the $1,200 check, the same as Trump. But what he's doing, instead of issuing a $1,200 check, what he's doing is spending the equivalent of $1,200. So he's for instance, on homeless programs, you know, to eradicate homelessness, he's giving out the equivalent of $1,200 per person.
Yeah, but Lee, let's not go into their trickery. We're talking about 2,500-fold increase in the amount of the total global wealth. We're talking about equal share of gold for everybody in every country of the world.
Yeah.
We're talking about it's going to be done within 24 hours. Once the country leaders, their ambassadors in Jakarta, go to Mr. Sino's office, world office in Cirebon, Bougainville 3, number 24 in Gria Caracas, Tertiasa, which is Agung, what is it? Agung Tertiasa. Anyway, it's a complex, a Gria Caracas.
Near the mosque. You can walk from the mosque to Mr. Sino's house within three minutes walking.
Yeah, but it's called like the postcode is 45153.
Right.
And it's Cirebon.
45153. Yeah.
Yeah, the postcode, and it should say UN World Office, President, you know, the President of UN. And so, like you say, Lee, they took Mr. Sino's father off the map as the president of the UN, and they took Mr. Sino off the map because Google has changed the address for him, and his location hasn't changed, but the address is completely different. So whereas on the master bond it said, you know, one thing, and now it's Bougainville that he's at, number 24, Bougainville 3. There's Bougainville 1, 2, and 3. So he's on 3.
They're 3 separate streets. You know, you can see it on the map.
Yeah.
And they give a number to each of the street having the same name, Bougainville. Yeah.
I think if you put World Office of the President of the UN, it should come up. You know, it's there. So that's it, Lee. Is that enough clarification for today for people answering people's questions?
Yeah. No, that's good coverage.
This is going to go public, and any more questions, if anybody wants to come on the Zoom and do these Zooms, like if they know more than us, then they can set up their own Zooms and we'll share them for them.
They can also, Andy Kassman filmed his travels from the mosque to
No, Lee, no,
Mississippi.
Lee,
They can watch it
no, that's not,
and
that's not,
see
no,
the
Lee,
direction. It's on YouTube
no.
anyway.
Anyway, so
Anyway,
that's, we've got the map, but we've put the map out there. We've done the video of
Yeah.
the actual map.
the map's there.
So
Yeah.
we don't need to do that. So, okay, that's it then, Lee, for today.
Okay.
Until
Thank
next
you.
time, thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless everybody, and let's pray for Swissindo to happen very soon.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Okay then.
Bye.
Okay.